Welcome to the Gospel Doctrine Helps class, where we provide you with insights, quotes, references, and help for your Gospel Doctrine class.
All right, welcome back to Gospel Doctrine Helps, where we help you with your Gospel Doctrine lessons. Today, we're going to be looking at Lesson 6 of the Old Testament. We're going to be talking about Noah, and so I'm hopeful that I can give you some additional insider information about Noah. The first thing I want you to look at is grab your copy of Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, turn to page 157. In that, Joseph Smith on July 2nd, 1836, he gave a talk. He was talking to priesthood leaders. He was talking about priesthood. And I'm picking it up on page 157. He says, let's turn to page 157. He says, the priesthood was first given to Adam. He obtained the first presidency and held the keys of it from generation to generation. He obtained it in the creation before the world was formed, as in Genesis 1, 26, 27, 28. He had dominion given him over every living creature. He is Michael, the archangel, spoken of in the scriptures. Then to Noah, who is Gabriel. He stands next in authority to Adam in the priesthood. I'm just going to stop right there. It's great. You should continue reading. It gives you more information. But that right there tells us that Noah is Gabriel. That's important, and you should point that out to your class, because Gabriel plays events in the Bible that come later on, specifically in Luke. You'll remember that an angel came to Zacharias in the temple while he was officiating in the priest's office. That angel was later identified as Gabriel. Gabriel also showed up to talk to Mary, the mother of Christ, and also showed up to talk to Joseph, the adoptive parent of Christ, here on earth. So we've got Gabriel's appearance there. We also have his appearance in other areas. He appeared in this dispensation through the dispensation of the fullness of times. Let's go to Doctrine and Covenants section 128. This is part of a letter that Joseph Smith wrote and contains some interesting information about angels and things like that. Turn to verse 21 of section 128. He says, and again the voice of God in the chamber of old Father Whitmer in Fayette, Seneca County, and at sundry times and in divers places through all the travails and tribulations of this Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the voice of Michael, the archangel, the voice of Gabriel. Okay, Gabriel's Noah, right? And of Raphael, and of divers angels from Michael or Adam down to the present time, all declaring their dispensation, their rights, their keys, their honors, their majesty and glory, and the power of their priesthood. And it goes on. But there you go, the voice of Gabriel was heard. In section 110 of the Doctrine and Covenants, don't forget to bring up the fact that Noah was there as an Elias, restoring some of the keys. He showed up. He was integral in this dispensation. And so it's important to know about Noah, and it's important to know he's Gabriel, and it's important to point that out to your class. Another point that I would bring up in your study, two other helps I'll give you in this lesson. One is, if you're looking at Genesis, and you're going to, of course, talk about Noah and the flood, don't be remiss to talk about in Genesis 6, verse 22, and also jump to Genesis 7, verse 5. I'll read those for you, and then we'll talk about them a bit. It says in 6:22, thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him. So did he. And then in chapter 7, verse 5, it says, and Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. So here you have in Scripture 3 times the Scriptures repeating that Noah did what God asked him to do. Ask yourself and ask your class, why is it that it's repeated 3 times in Scripture that Noah did what God commanded him to do? And then as you're thinking about that, also ask yourself, who else in the Scriptures has done all that God commanded them to do? You can think about Nephi in 1 Nephi 3:7, right? I will go and do the things which the Lord commanded. You can also think of Christ. A fantastic example is Christ, of course. He's the example in all things. But 3 Nephi chapter 11, verse 11, listen to how Christ defines himself when he appears to the people of Nephi. And behold, I am the light and the life of the world, and I have drunk out of the bitter cup which the Father hath given me, and have glorified the Father in taking upon me the sins of the world, in which I have suffered the will of the Father in all things from the beginning. You see, Christ being the exemplar, being the example, he did everything he was commanded to do by the Father. If you go back to Abraham and you read, it talks about how the gods are organizing the world, and they watched and they worked until all things obeyed and were obedient, right? So you can bring those things up as well. It is obedience to the commandments of God that brings about righteousness, which is what Abraham sought for. It's what Noah did. And it's a good thing to bring up, being obedient to the commandments of God. All right. And then one last thing that I'll bring up is a gospel doctrine tip here, is that in Doctrine and Covenants, section 93, verse 1, it says, Verily thus saith the Lord, it shall come to pass that every soul who forsaketh his sins, and cometh unto me, and calleth on my name, and obeyeth my voice, and keepeth my commandments, shall see my face, and know that I am. And I would point out that this verse corresponds with those verses in Genesis 6 and Genesis chapter 7, wherein Noah obeyed the voice of God to him, and he kept the commandments, as we are instructed to do here. And this teaches us, because it says that every soul who does this will see the face of God. It reminds us that God is no respecter of persons, but he is the same to all of us, right? Every person in every nation who fears God and keeps the commandments, does what God tells them to do, will be honored, respected, and known of God, and will be able to, if they do everything else, exercise faith in God unto life and salvation. So those are my gospel doctrine tips for lesson 6. I hope you found them helpful. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if you like it, and I hope to see you on future videos.